The courtroom was unusually quiet for a busy day. Lawyers shuffled papers, jurors whispered quietly, and a judge watched from his elevated bench with a serious expression. It was the day everyone had been waiting for, the trial that had gripped the entire small town. The case involved a home invasion and a man accused of threatening a family in their own house. But no one expected what was about to happen next. The courtroom door swung open slowly, and a woman stepped in, holding the hand of a tiny girl who couldn't have been more than 3 years old. The little girl's steps were hesitant but steady. She clutched a worn stuffed animal in one hand while gripping her mother's fingers with the other. Her bright eyes scanned the room, filled with people in suits and uniforms. A few spectators smiled softly, charmed by the sight of such a small child in a serious place like a courtroom. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Miss Collins, stood and nodded toward them. "Your Honor," she said quietly, "this is Lily Thompson. She was present during the incident and is a key witness in this case." The judge nodded, glancing at the child who was now seated on her mother's lap. Some in the courtroom whispered doubts. How could a toddler remember anything important? How could she possibly help with such a complicated case? But the silence broke when Lily looked up from her mother's lap and softly asked, "Is the dog here?" Her voice was clear, yet so small it barely carried. The room seemed to freeze in that moment. Everyone turned toward the entrance, wondering what dog she meant. No one had expected a police dog to be part of the trial. Minutes later, the doors opened again. A tall, muscular police officer entered, leading a majestic German shepherd by his side. The dog's name was Max, and he was no ordinary canine. Max was a trained police canine, known for his sharp instincts and calm temperament. He had been with the local police department for nearly 5 years and had been involved in countless investigations. But today, Max wasn't there to catch a criminal or search for evidence. He was here for Lily Dot. As soon as Lily spotted Max, her face transformed. The shy little girl who had clung tightly to her mother suddenly stood up and walked straight to Max. Without hesitation, she wrapped her tiny arms around his neck, pressing her cheek to his thick fur. Max responded by licking her face gently, then sitting patiently beside her. The judge paused the proceedings, allowing the moment to linger. The courtroom was filled with mixed emotions. For some, it was a touching scene of a child finding comfort in a dog. For others, it was a sign that something deeper was unfolding. It was clear Max had a special bond with Lily. Officer Daniels, Max's handler, stepped forward and explained, "Max was with Lily on the night of the incident. He protected her when things got dangerous." The room murmured softly. Suddenly, the case felt more personal, more urgent. Miss E. Collins took a breath and addressed the court again. Lily may be young, but her connection with Max could provide key insights that no adult witness can offer. We believe her presence here today, with Max, will help reveal the truth. The judge nodded and signaled for the questioning to begin. A social worker entered the courtroom and sat beside Lily. She spoke gently, asking the little girl simple questions to help her feel at ease. "Lily, can you tell me your name?" Lily smiled shyly and whispered, "Lily, do you like Max?" The little girl nodded enthusiastically, squeezing the dog's fur. "Is Max your friend?" Lily answered with a small nod, eyes shining. The social worker carefully asked, "What do you remember from the night when Max helped you?" Lily hesitated, looking first at her mother, then at Max. Then, in the softest voice, she said, "Bad." "Man!" The courtroom's attention sharpened instantly. Those two simple words carried more weight than anyone had expected. The judge called for a short recess, allowing everyone to absorb what had just happened. In the quiet hallway, Lily sat quietly next to Max. She rested her head on his side and whispered, "He scared me." Officer Daniels smiled down at her and said, "Max will always protect you." Back inside the courtroom, the jury looked thoughtful. They had heard many complicated testimonies, but none as direct or heartfelt as this moment. The case was no longer just about evidence on paper. It was about a little girl, a police dog, and a truth waiting to be told. The courtroom doors opened once more, and all eyes shifted toward the entrance. Officer Daniels, a tall man with a calm but confident presence, walked in slowly, leading Max, the German Shepherd police dog. Max's sleek coat gleamed under the courtroom lights, and his steady, intelligent eyes scanned the room as if understanding the importance of this moment. He was no ordinary dog. Max was a hero, trained to protect and serve, especially in situations where human lives were at risk. Lily's eyes immediately found Max, the tension that had filled the room moments before softened as the tiny girl's face brightened with recognition and relief. She stood up, unafraid, and took small, determined steps toward the dog. Everyone watched quietly, captivated by the unexpected connection unfolding before them. Reaching Max's side, Lily wrapped her small arms around his neck, burying her face into his fur as if seeking safety and comfort. Max responded instantly, licking her cheek gently, tail wagging slightly. The courtroom's atmosphere shifted from anxious to tender, revealing a rare moment of vulnerability in an otherwise serious trial. Officer Daniels spoke calmly but clearly, addressing the judge and the gathered courtroom. "Your Honor, Max was with Lily during the incident. He was trained to protect her and has been by her side since." He glanced down at Lily, who looked back at him with trust and admiration. Max's presence here today is not just symbolic, it's vital. The judge nodded thoughtfully, understanding that this was more than just a courtroom procedure. It was a story of protection, trust, and a bond that went beyond words. As Max settled beside Lily, the social worker resumed her gentle questioning. "Lily, can you tell us what Max did when the bad man came?" Lily looked up at Max again, her expression serious but composed. After a brief pause, she whispered, "Max barked loud." The simple words echoed in the courtroom. Everyone listened closely as the social worker encouraged Lily to share more. "What happened next, Lily?" Lily's tiny hands clutched Max's fur as she recalled the frightening memory. Max growled. Then the man ran. The courtroom remained silent, the image vivid and real. For the first time, the abstract story of a crime turned into a tangible event witnessed by a child and her loyal dog. The defense attorney, sitting across the room, frowned. He rose, attempting to dismiss the significance of a toddler's words, but the judge held up a hand. "We will allow the testimony. The court understands the unusual circumstances." The defense reluctantly sat back down, sensing the tide shifting. Outside the courtroom, reporters whispered excitedly about the unusual witness. A 3-year-old child with a police dog as her protector was not a story anyone had anticipated. Yet, the unfolding events were captivating, revealing how courage could come from the most unexpected places. Back inside, the social worker asked Lily to point to the person she thought was the bad man. Without hesitation, Lily's small finger extended toward the defendant. The man's face tightened, and the courtroom's energy changed again. No dramatic outburst, only the quiet strength of a child's truth. Max's presence seemed to steady Lily, who had faced more fear than most. Adults would endure. The dog's calm demeanor offered her comfort, and the jury noticed how naturally she interacted with him. This was not a staged act, but a genuine connection that had real meaning. Officer Daniels explained to the jury how Max had been trained for these kinds of situations. "Max's instincts are sharp," he said. "He reacts only to threats, and his behavior that night was recorded on his body camera." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. The footage shows Max's reactions to the man in question. The prosecutor requested permission to play the body cam video. The defense objected, arguing it might prejudice the jury, but the judge allowed a limited viewing, considering the video's potential to clarify the events. The screen lit up with shaky footage from the night of the incident. Max's perspective was clear. His ears perked up as a shadowy figure entered the house. The dog barked once, then growled low. The figure moved closer, and Max positioned himself between the man and a small child. The barking grew louder, and then the video cut out. The jury sat in silence, absorbing what they had seen. The video was not just evidence. It was proof of Max's protective instinct, and by extension, Lily's safety that night. As the video ended, Miss Collins turned to the jury. Max's loyalty saved Lily's life. Her testimony, though brief, is backed by the actions of a highly trained police dog. Together, they tell a story of protection and truth. The courtroom buzzed quietly. No one doubted that this dog and child were at the heart of the case. Not just witnesses, but living proof that fear and courage often walk hand in hand. The courtroom fell into a hushed anticipation as the questioning of Lily continued. The social worker spoke softly, understanding the delicate nature of speaking with such a young child under stressful circumstances. Lily, nestled beside Max, seemed calm and reassured by the dog's presence. Max sat quietly, alert but relaxed, as if knowing his role extended beyond protection. He was also a source of comfort. Lily, the social worker began. Can you tell us what you remember from that night? The child's eyes searched the room briefly before settling on Max's face. She took a deep breath, her tiny fingers clutching the dog's fur. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, "He growled." The two words rippled through the courtroom like a gentle but powerful wave. It was a simple statement, yet it carried the weight of fear and protection. The judge nodded encouragingly, urging the social worker to continue without pressuring. The child, who growled, Lily? The social worker asked. Lily's eyes remained fixed on Max as she whispered, "Max." Her voice was so soft some listeners leaned forward to catch the words. The courtroom was struck by the unspoken connection between the girl and the dog, a silent understanding that only they shared. The defense attorney moved to challenge the relevance of such minimal testimony, but the prosecutor objected, pointing out the significance of a child's emotional memory and Max's trained reactions. The judge allowed the testimony to proceed, knowing that sometimes truth came in small, clear moments. Lily was asked again to tell more about what happened. She hesitated, then said, "Bad man loud." She pointed toward the defendant, her small finger steady and unwavering. The courtroom held its breath. Here was a child barely able to speak in full sentences, making a clear identification without hesitation or confusion. The social worker explained to the court that children like Lily often experience trauma in ways adults might not immediately understand. They remember feelings, sounds, and sensations, rather than detailed narratives. For Lily, Max's growl was a signal, a warning that danger was near. As the questioning continued, Lily demonstrated other subtle signs of trauma. She flinched slightly when asked about loud noises, and her hands trembled as she held Max's leash. But when Max nuzzled her, she relaxed instantly. The jury noticed these small details, sensing the genuine impact of the night's events on this little girl. Officer Daniels was called to the stand next. He described Max's training and how the dog's instincts had protected Lily. "Max only reacts when he senses real danger," Daniels said. "He's never aggressive without cause." That night, he barked and growled to keep the threat away. The prosecution presented more evidence, including a report of a break-in at the Thompson family's home and witness accounts placing the defendant nearby. But it was Lily's simple words and Max's behavior that began to connect the pieces in a way that numbers and reports couldn't. Behind the scenes, detectives reviewed footage from Max's body camera, which had recorded the night of the incident. The video showed Max alerting to a figure entering the house, barking once sharply, and growling low before positioning himself protectively near Lily. This visual evidence confirmed what Lily's testimony suggested that Max had acted to: protect the child from a real threat. The courtroom watched the footage with intense focus. The shadowy figure moved cautiously, unaware of Max's presence. The dog's actions were calm but decisive. The defense attorney tried to argue that the video was inconclusive, but the jury seemed unconvinced. Lily's mother sat quietly in the courtroom, her eyes occasionally glistening with tears. She knew how hard it had been for Lily to face the courtroom, to speak about a terrifying night. Yet she also knew that her daughter's courage, supported by the steady presence of Max, was helping to uncover the truth. As the session drew to a close, the judge reminded everyone that this was only the beginning. The case still held many complexities, but the child's testimony, though brief, had already changed the course of the trial. Outside the courtroom, the buzz was palpable. Reporters speculated about the unusual but powerful role a toddler and a police dog played in a case that could have gone cold without their testimony. The story was no longer just about crime and punishment. It was about trust, instinct, and the extraordinary bond between a child and her protector. For the jury, the evidence was clear. In the face of fear and uncertainty, Lily had found safety. In Max, her two-word testimony was not just a clue, it was a beacon of truth that illuminated the dark corners of the case. The courtroom was filled with a quiet tension that was hard to ignore. Everyone had been listening closely to the child's hesitant answers, trying to piece together the story she could barely tell. Yet despite her young age and limited vocabulary, Lily's words carried a weight that no one could dismiss. Prosecutor decided to gently ask a question that would change everything. Lily, can you tell us who scared you that night? The little girl looked around the courtroom slowly, her gaze landing on the man sitting at the defense table. She didn't cry or hesitate. Instead, she stood up, steadied herself by placing a small hand on Max's back, and spoke clearly, "Bad man." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Those two words were simple but spoke volumes. The defendant's face tightened, his eyes flickering with surprise and unease. The judge leaned forward, signaling for order, while murmurs rippled through the crowd. No one had expected such a straightforward identification from a child so young. It was as if Lily's two words cut through the fog of legal complexity and touched the heart of the truth. The judge called for a brief recess to allow the court to absorb the moment. During the recess, the courtroom buzzed with speculation. Lawyers whispered, jurors exchanged glances, and reporters scribbled notes furiously. Many wondered how a toddler, barely able to form sentences, could make such a direct statement. Could it be reliable? Was it enough to sway the outcome? Back in the courtroom, the social worker explained the science behind children's memory and trauma. Children like Lily often remember emotions and sensory details rather than full stories. They may express themselves through gestures or a few words, especially when reassured by a trusted figure, in this case, the police dog. Max. The defense attorney attempted to downplay Lily's testimony, claiming the child was too young to identify anyone accurately. But the prosecutor countered with evidence that supported the child's experience: the timing of the break-in, the dog's body cam footage, and eyewitness accounts that aligned with Lily's statements. Lily was then asked to explain what happened. After she said, "Bad man," her reply was simple yet powerful. Max barked. Then he growled. The man ran. The courtroom fell silent again, imagining the tense scene that unfolded in a dark house while a child and a dog stood their ground. Judge allowed the prosecutor to show the body cam footage once more. The video displayed Max's calm but alert behavior, barking sharply as the shadowed figure approached. Max's growl was low and steady, warning the intruder away. The dog positioned himself protectively between Lily and the man, showing clear signs of threat. The defendant's lawyer raised objections, but the judge overruled them, citing the video's direct connection to Lily's testimony. The jury watched intently, absorbing the undeniable link between the child's words and Max's actions. Outside the courtroom, the story had already made headlines. The unusual witness, a 3-year-old girl and her police dog, had captured public attention. People were touched by the bond they shared and the bravery it took for a toddler to face a courtroom filled with strangers. Inside, the trial continued, but the atmosphere had shifted. What had seemed like a standard legal proceeding had become a story about trust, instinct, and the incredible courage of a small child who spoke 2 words that carried the weight of a lifetime. Lily's mother sat nearby, holding her daughter's hand tightly. She was proud, but also deeply aware of how difficult this experience was for her child. Yet, in those 2 words, she saw the power of truth and the beginning of justice. The prosecution rested their case on the strength of Lily's testimony, Max's body cam footage, and the evidence that tied the defendant to the scene. The defense prepared to argue their side, but it was clear that the tide had turned as the courtroom adjourned for the day. Many whispered about the remarkable moment when a 3-year-old's simple phrase stopped everyone in their tracks. It was a reminder that sometimes truth does not need long explanations or complicated arguments. It needs only honesty and courage, even if spoken by the smallest voice in the room. The courtroom settled back into its rhythm after the dramatic moments earlier. The weight of Lily's simple words, "Bad man," still lingered in the air like a quiet storm. Everyone felt it, though no one said it aloud. The case had shifted in a way no one anticipated, and the ripple effects were only just beginning. The defense attorney rose, attempting to cast doubt on the little girl's testimony. He argued that a 3-year-old's memory was unreliable, that children of that age were too easily influenced and couldn't accurately identify anyone. He insisted that the entire situation was emotional manipulation, designed to sway the jury with a child's innocence rather than concrete evidence. But the prosecutor stood firm, countering with facts and expert testimony. Lily's words are supported by Max's behavior and the body cam footage. Ms. Collins explained, "This is not guesswork or hearsay. It's a combination of trained canine instincts and the pure truth of a child's experience." She urged the jury to consider the full picture, not just the words, but the actions, the evidence, and the courage behind them. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, detectives were busy re-examining Max's body cam footage from the night of the incident. This footage, which had not been fully analyzed before, showed key moments that no one had noticed in the chaos of the original investigation. In the grainy video, Max's ears perked sharply as a shadowy figure approached. The dog barked once, a sharp sound that echoed in the silent footage. Then came a low growl, full of warning and protection. The shadow hesitated, then suddenly turned and fled. Audio from the footage was enhanced by forensic experts, revealing a man's voice shouting in anger. When the voice was isolated and compared, it matched the defendant's exactly. This discovery was a game changer. It confirmed what Lily and Max had already shown, that the man on trial was the intruder who had frightened the little girl and caused Max to act. The prosecution submitted this new evidence to the court, and the judge allowed it. The defense argued that it was circumstantial and inconclusive, but the jury was already visibly moved by the mounting proof. Back in the courtroom, the psychologist testified next, explaining the nature of emotional memory, in young children. She described how trauma imprints on the brain in fragment sounds, feelings, and images rather than clear, detailed stories. She praised Lily's resilience and noted how her bond with Max had helped her feel safe enough to communicate. Children often rely on trusted figures to anchor their memories, the psychologist said. In this case, Max provided the safety. Lily needed to express her experience, even if only through a few words. Officer Daniels returned to the stand to elaborate on Max's training and instincts. Max is trained to respond only to real threats, he explained. He barks and growls to protect, not to intimidate. His reactions that night were clear signs of danger. As the testimony continued, the courtroom's mood shifted. What had started as a complicated legal battle was becoming a story of loyalty, bravery, and trust. The image of a tiny girl and a police dog standing side by side against danger was impossible to forget. Jury members exchanged glances, some nodding subtly. They were not just hearing facts, they were feeling them. When the court adjourned for the day, many lingered in the hallways, talking in hushed tones about the unlikely heroes of the trial. The press described it as a story of hope and courage, focusing on the unbreakable bond between a child and her protector. Lily's mother thanked Officer Daniels quietly, tears in her eyes. She knew the path ahead was still difficult, but with Max by their side, they had a chance at justice. For the little girl, the days ahead held new challenges, but also a promise that her voice, small but powerful, had been heard, and that sometimes it took only 2 words to change everything. The courtroom buzzed softly as the trial reached a pivotal moment. Officer Daniels took the stand once again, his calm voice filling the room with authority and reassurance. The focus was now on Max the German Shepherd, whose instincts and training had become central to the case. The dog wasn't just a witness. He was a protector and a symbol of trust. Max has been trained for 5 years, Officer Daniels began. He's one of our best K-9 officers. His job is to identify threats and protect those in danger, especially children. He paused and looked at Lily, who sat quietly beside Max, her fingers gently stroking the dog's fur. On the night of the incident, Max's behavior was textbook. He barked and growled only when he sensed a real threat. The jury listened intently. This was more than just testimony. It was an explanation of how a dog's instincts could be relied upon in moments of danger. Officer Daniels shared stories of Max's past work, how the dog had protected officers and civilians alike, always with precision and care. The defense attorney tried to challenge the reliability of Max's reactions, arguing that dogs could misinterpret situations, but Officer Daniels remained steady. Max doesn't act without reason, he said firmly. He's trained to stay calm and react only when necessary. His growl that night saved Lily's life. Then, the psychologist returned to the stand to explain the unique way young children experience and recall trauma. She described anchor recall, a process where children associate memories with people or animals they trust. For Lily, Max was her anchor, a living, breathing reminder of safety amid fear. Children often don't tell detailed stories after trauma, the psychologist explained. Instead, they communicate through simple words, gestures, or even silence. Lily's 2 words, bad man, carry profound meaning because they come from a place of emotional truth. Lily's mother watched from the gallery, her heart swelling with both pride and sorrow. The experience had been difficult for her daughter, but she was amazed by the little girl's strength. Max had been a source of comfort through the long nights after the incident, and now, in the courtroom. As the psychologist spoke, Lily reached out and placed her hand on Max's head. The dog responded with a gentle nudge, as if acknowledging her bravery. The room was quiet, everyone sensing the deep bond between the two. The prosecutor then presented further evidence tying the defendant to the crime scene. Surveillance footage placed the man near the neighborhood that night. Forensic reports connected items found at the scene to the suspect. But it was Max's body cam footage and Lily's testimony that gave the case its emotional weight. The defense argued the evidence was circumstantial and that Lily's young age made her testimony unreliable. But jurors whispered among themselves, clearly moved by the innocence and courage they had witnessed. Officer Daniels explained how Max's body cam recorded every reaction the dog had during the incident. You can see and hear the moment Max sensed danger. His bark, his growl, his positioning between Lily and the intruder, it's all captured. The prosecutor played the footage again, this time highlighting Max's deliberate, protective behavior. The jurors watched, some leaning forward, their faces serious and thoughtful. After the session ended, a juror approached Officer Daniels quietly. "That dog and that little girl, they saved a life," she said softly. "I've never seen anything like it." Outside the courthouse, reporters captured the story of Max and Lily. Headlines praised the police dog's heroism and the toddler's courage. The public was touched by the unlikely duo who had stood strong in the face of fear. Lily's mother spoke to the press, thanking the police department and promising to protect her daughter's privacy moving forward. "Max has been our guardian angel," she said, "and Lily is my brave little girl." For Lily, the trial was far from over, but she had already changed the course of justice. Through the instincts of a dog and the innocent bravery of a child, truth had found its voice in the courtroom. The atmosphere inside the courtroom had changed dramatically. What began as a routine legal proceeding had evolved into something much more profound. The bond between Lily and Max was undeniable, and it had begun to sway the hearts and minds of everyone present. The prosecution prepared to present a key piece of evidence: the full body cam footage from Max, a police dog. The video promised to reveal the moments that Lily's words had only just begun to describe. As the lights dimmed, a hush fell over the courtroom. The video showed Max moving calmly through the thicket of the Thompson family's neighborhood, his ears twitching at every sound. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared in the frame, moving quickly toward the house. Max's body tensed, his tail straightening. Then, a sharp bark pierced the quiet night. A clear warning. The intruder froze, startled by the sudden noise. Max growled low and steady, positioning himself between the shadow and the small child. The video captured the man's angry shout, his voice harsh and filled with frustration. The camera shook slightly as Max lunged forward, his presence alone enough to make the man retreat. The courtroom watched in silence, the image of the protective dog guarding Lily etched in their minds. The jury's expressions were somber, some nodding slowly in understanding. The video was powerful. It spoke of instinct, loyalty, and bravery without the need for words. The defense attorney challenged the footage, suggesting the video didn't conclusively prove the man's guilt. But the judge overruled, stating the footage was relevant and credible, especially when combined with Lily's testimony and the other evidence. Next, the prosecutor called expert witnesses, audio specialists and canine behaviorists, to explain the significance of Max's reactions. The audio specialists analyzed the recorded voice on the footage, confirming it matched the defendant's with a high degree of certainty. The canine experts detailed how Max's behavior was textbook for protection and fear response, validating Officer Daniels' testimony. The jury seemed captivated. They were not just hearing facts. They were witnessing a story unfold, a story where truth was revealed by a child's courage and a dog's keen instincts. Meanwhile, Lily sat quietly with her mother, occasionally reaching out to pet Max. Her presence, once nervous and uncertain, now carried a quiet confidence. She had become more than a witness. She was the heart of the case. Outside the courtroom, the story had already captured the attention of the community. News outlets shared updates, and social media buzzed with admiration for the little girl and her heroic dog. People felt inspired by the idea that even the smallest voices could make the biggest difference. The trial approached its final days, and the defense prepared its closing arguments. Yet the mood in the courtroom had shifted. The doubt that once lingered was fading, replaced by a growing sense of justice in motion. The judge reminded everyone that the decision rested with the jury, and the importance of impartiality and careful consideration was paramount. But it was clear that Lily's simple words and Max's fearless actions had left an unforgettable impression out. As the day came to a close, Lily and Max were escorted out gently. The courtroom emptied slowly, the echoes of the case lingering in the minds of all who had witnessed it. The unlikely pair had not only helped solve a crime, but had also reminded everyone of the power of trust, loyalty, and courage. Outside, Officer Daniels spoke quietly to the press. Max did his job, but he also gave Lily something more. A sense of safety and hope. That's what this case is really about. Lily's mother held her daughter close, whispering words of comfort and pride. For Lily, the trial was an overwhelming experience, but she had shown remarkable bravery. With Max by her side, she had spoken a truth that words alone could not express. The courtroom was no longer just a place of judgment. It had become a stage for an extraordinary story, one where a child and a dog spoke louder than any testimony, and where innocence and instinct changed the course of justice. The courtroom was filled with a heavy silence as the jury filed back inside after their deliberation. The faces of the jurors were serious, some tired, others resolute. The judge looked at them expectantly, his gavel resting lightly on the bench. The tension was palpable. All eyes turned to the jury foreperson, who stood and spoke clearly. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty as charged." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The defendant lowered his head, the weight of the verdict settling on his shoulders. The judge nodded solemnly, thanking the jury for their service. Lily's mother exhaled quietly, relief washing over her face. She glanced down at her daughter, who was nestled beside Max, still clutching the dog's fur. Lily looked up briefly and whispered, "Thank you, Max." The room softened for a moment, touched by the innocent gratitude of a child who had faced so much. Max wagged his tail gently, sensing the calm and the safety in the air. The judge addressed the courtroom, reminding everyone of the gravity of the moment. This verdict reflects not only the evidence, but also the bravery of those who spoke the truth, including a young child and a devoted police dog. The prosecutor thanked the officers, the social workers, and the psychologist who had supported Lily through the difficult process. She praised Max's instincts and Officer Daniels' dedication, emphasizing how teamwork had brought justice. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed to capture the story. Headlines highlighted the unlikely heroes, a 3-year-old girl and her police dog, who had helped secure a conviction. The public was captivated by the story's heart and the triumph of innocence and loyalty. Lily's mother, while grateful, requested privacy for her daughter. "Lily is brave, but she is still a child," she said softly. "We want to protect her as she heals." In the weeks that followed, Max was awarded a special commendation by the police department for his role in the case. Officer Daniels accepted the award on Max's behalf, smiling with pride. "Max's instincts saved a life," he said. "He's more than a dog. He's family." For Lily, life slowly returned to normal. The experience had left its mark, but with Max by her side, she felt safer and stronger. She continued to visit the police station, receiving visits from officers who had come to admire her courage. The community also rallied around the Thompson family, offering support and kindness. Local schools held fundraisers to help with therapy and support services for Lily. Though the trial was over, the bond between Lily and Max remained unbreakable. They were more than friends. They were symbols of hope, courage, and the power of connection. Their story reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest voices can carry the loudest truths, and that loyalty and love come in many forms. As the sun set on the case, Lily looked up at Max and smiled. She whispered again, "Thank you." And Max, faithful as ever, simply nuzzled her hand. Justice had been served. But more importantly, a little girl's trust in a dog had changed everything.